Hey guys, I'm here talking about the new Netflix show, The Crown. It's a biopic about the Queen, and I've got a very special guest who knows quite a lot about the Queen. Yeah, would you call yourself an expert on the Queen?
No, just an interested person.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not particularly a fan of the royal family or the Queen or anything like that, but you've always liked those guys.
Yeah.
And also, the show is like set during. When's it set? Like late 40s, mid to mid 50s, and you were alive and doing stuff in that time, right? So, you know.
Yes, which is why I'm mostly interested in it.
Yeah. So, like I said, The Crown is a Netflix show. It follows Queen Elizabeth II when she's fairly young. Shows her getting married in what, 1947, around about then. As the episodes go along, the years progress, and I think it finishes like 56, 55, around about then. And it basically just, shows how she became the Queen and the historical events at the time. First off, I want to talk about the Queen's dad in it, George VI. He's in the first couple of episodes. I was really impressed by the actor, Jared Harris. I thought, he gave one of the best performances in the whole show. Did you have anything to say about George VI?
He was often ill.
Yeah.
He wasn't a strong man.
He kept puking up blood, or vomiting blood or something,
Yeah.
didn't he? And I thought it was interesting that, he would just smoke another cigarette. Oh, it doesn't matter. And his advisors were like, oh, it's just the cold weather. It's like, no, you're vomiting blood. That's not normal. That was kind of interesting. The 40s take of that kind of thing. That the king is dying and they're not even telling him.
Yeah.
But yeah, I thought the actor was really, really good. He's only in the first couple episodes, so as it goes along, you might forget that he was even in it. But man, he was so good, I thought. So I wanted to talk about Churchill. The actor who played Churchill, John Lithgow, I'm a big fan of. But when he was cast, I thought I don't know about that. I don't know if you know, but the guy who plays Churchill is American. Did you know that?
Yes, I did.
I don't know. He just completely was transformed. I kept forgetting that it was John Lithgow.
Yes, he did look like him and sound like him.
Churchill was one of my favorite parts, just because he was like the loose cannon. He was just he was just doing something crazy. He'd be in a bath and calling his secretary over, or there was a whole episode that focused on his 80th birthday where he got a painting commission. Do you remember that?
Yes. Yes.
But he hated it because it made him look old. But it's his 80th birthday.
But it was a lovely painting.
Yeah, but he burned it, didn't
Yeah.
he? Yeah.
Which was a shock.
Do you want to say anything else about Churchill?
Well, he's a very striking sort of person, or was, and always in the news, but he does like to get away from it all and go into the country, spend a lot of time there, and doing the paintings that he loved to do. I felt in some places it was a hard thing for him to do, when he'd rather be at home, in his home, with his wife. And they were very fond of each other, and that the politics are interrupting, or were interrupting.
So obviously we have to talk about the Queen as well. Claire Foy plays the Queen, and I thought she did a pretty good job. But I don't know, the Queen to me isn't the most interesting, historical figure out there. She doesn't have that much power. That's what that's my problem with people who care about the royal family and kings and queens. It's they, unless it's Henry VIII, they're not really doing much. I don't know, as a person she's somewhat interesting. She's young when she gets thrown into it and she's not fully prepared. There was an episode that dealt with the fact that she didn't have much of an education or anything, even though like I said, she doesn't do much. They do the best with what they can do, I thought. What did you think about the Queen?
At first was taken by her being actually in the Queen and wearing these beautiful clothes and hats and going to beautiful places and enjoying the people greeting her wherever she went. But it didn't always feel like that when we were thinking about what her private life was about. I think there are lots of things in her life that she would rather have not left behind, as it were, such as the horses.
Yeah.
She did love the horses.
The show did show a bit of that with the horses, didn't it?
Yes.
There was an episode where her horse trainer friend or whatever came into town, wasn't it?
Yes.
From Porchy or whatever his name was.
Yes.
And they were kind of saying that like people wanted her to get with Porchy, wasn't it?
Yes.
But like she chose Philip instead.
No, she did it because she went to have Philip because it was her duty to have someone like him. But really she would have liked to have been mucking out in the stables and wearing a scarf on her head and chatting with all the people working in the stables. And I felt that had she been left able to make her mind up about who she wanted, I think she would rather have had Philip, not Philip.
Porchy. Hmm.
And I think that was her lost love.
So speaking of Philip, I thought Matt Smith, that's another weird casting job. Like, you look at him and it's like, I don't see Philip there, but, you know, he's a good actor, but he did a decent job. But Philip as a character in this was interesting because they made him, like, fairly unlikable. I think that's what you were getting at, like, when you said, like, the Queen had a bad kind of private life. Like, Philip, you know, he's always whining and moaning and just, like, he's always going out drinking and just, like, I don't know, that's just, it's not what I pictured with, like, you know, the Queen and her husband. It's like, it's a kind of uncomfortable home life. I thought it was a weird choice, but, you know, maybe it's accurate to how Philip really is.
No, I don't think he came over really strongly. They said one shot that she was standing in the window of the palace and watching Philip and his friends going off at midnight or some such long dark place, and she was left behind and he was out womanizer. And that grieved me a bit.
You might disagree, but I do like that they didn't completely, you know, make them all look perfect. Like, you know, that they showed the dark side. Like you were saying with Philip, like, that they made him, you know, not sympathetic. That they didn't, like, make everybody look like the most perfect person ever. That, you know, there was even that part early on where, like, Philip was in Africa or somewhere and he was making, like, offensive comments. He was like, you know, hey, where'd you get those medals? Did you steal them? And it's like, yes. Philip really did, like, say horribly offensive things like that. So I thought, you know, it's pretty,
he
it's pretty good.
Often speak before he thinks.
Think before he speaks.
Well,
yeah. But on the other hand of that, I thought Edward, you know, the king's brother, Edward, yeah. I thought he was somewhat, like, likable. Even though, you know, I feel like history has painted him as this figure who, like, oh, he abdicated, oh, he's horrible, you know. But I thought, like, you know, he was king. He fell in love with a woman. He said, all right, I want to get with this woman. Okay, you're not going to let me be king. All right, forget that. And then he comes back and, like, this whole family, like, hates him. I thought, like, you know, I kind of feel bad for this dude.
He had to be strong to get through it. Because he had a lot of people trying to make him see that it was his duty to carry on what he has been asked to be, but that didn't matter to him because he wanted the person that he was
Wallace Simpson
loved.
I think the best episode was the one about the smog. I think we can both agree, right? We both liked that one.
Well, to you it was.
Well, you didn't like it?
I didn't like the fog. It was awful.
No, I mean the episode was good. I don't mean the real life.
Yes,
you know?
yes.
I don't know, I just liked it because I didn't know that was a thing. Like, apparently there was a Great Smog of 1952 or something like that where it killed 12,000 people or something. That's what it said at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
And the episode makes it like a horror episode or something. It's like, it's filmed like, you know, there's people closing the blinds, and oh no, there's a big evil smog killing people. It's like the smoke monster from Lost or something, or like a Stephen King movie or something. But it's like, I didn't know this was a thing. Like, I feel like that should have been more public information, you know, or teach it at school or something like.
Well, yes, but it was real. I can vouch for that. I walked in, usually not a high street, but in the where all the council houses were, and you didn't know where you were going. You didn't know how far up the road you were. And I did actually once manage to get on a bus, and it just crept along. How the driver knew where he's going, I don't know. But it was a frightening experience, because you didn't just know. You couldn't look out the window and see how far it was to get home. But eventually, with the conductors calling out when they knew where they'd got to, and I got out of the bus at Apple Tree Avenue and thanked the driver, because I was so grateful that I'd actually got home in such awful business.
This season spends a lot of time on Margaret, the Queen's sister, and her relationship with somebody called Peter Townsend, and it's like, it takes up almost the entire season. And I thought, like, there's bits and pieces of this that's quite interesting, and I do feel bad for Margaret, like how it's like Edward, she's in love with somebody, and you know, the royal family don't want it to be because of stupid stuff. Oh, he's been divorced. Oh, like, I feel like that's such an antiquated thing, but even still, like, I don't think they should have spent like as much time as they did on it. So apparently there's going to be 60 episodes in total, so 5 more seasons, I think. Are there any certain historical events that you're looking forward to them showing?
What about when the men got onto the moon?
What about, like, I mean, this is a few seasons down, but like Thatcher or Blair or Diana?
Well, I'm not interested in politics.
Yeah, but it isn't so much, you know, their politics. It's just like, sometimes they're an interesting person. It's like, to me, Thatcher and Churchill are more interesting as figures than the Queen. Just because they did crazy stuff, you know? That's like having a character, you know? It's like, what did the Queen do? Okay, she liked horses, you know? Well, what else? You know, what did she actually do? Like,
well, I think it's the reason why I look at it differently is because it doesn't always have to be things that have gone wrong, or people that have argued or broken up marriages and so on and so forth. I like everybody being happy ever after.
yeah, but that's not what really happens in life, really.
No.
So do you want to share your overall thoughts? Would you recommend the show?
I would. It was interesting. And it was nice to be reminded for things that you actually were around at that time. You can say to people, I was there, or I saw that. It was sort of half and half all the time.
You said it was half and half, so half of it's the Queen and the other half is...
Well, like 2 different books, if you like.
Okay.
One book is the sort of books that I read.
Well, where nice stuff happens.
Yes.
And the other half is like horrible stuff, like
Yes.
smog killing people.
Yes.
Those are my kind of books.
Yes, that's right. That's what I was trying to say.
And I think that's why we both like the show, is because, you know, you like, you know, oh, the Queen is doing nice stuff, and I like, you know, oh, that's what Churchill did, or, you know, that's this crazy, you know, event at the time. Like, I kind of went into this thinking, like, I'll be honest, I only, you know, started watching the show for you, like, just something to watch. I thought, like, I'm just gonna hate this, but, like, the guy who played Queen's dad just blew me away, you know. Churchill, you know, I thought was really, really interesting. It's just, I thought it'd be like 10 episodes all about the Queen, just 10 hours of the Queen, and it's not. I think that's why it works, it's because everything around the Queen is actually interesting. but you like the Queen stuff, and I like what's around it, and that's why we both enjoyed it, which is quite interesting.
Yeah.
So I mean, I would actually recommend it too, even if you don't, you know, care for the royals. But you know, it's somewhat slow sometimes. I think the show started better than it ended. I think like the first like 4 episodes or so, we were like, whoa, this show is great, and then it, you know, it became a little bit of a chore as it went along. But you know, like we said earlier, like I'm looking forward to future seasons. You know, it's going to progress in time, and then I actually am looking forward to seeing them talk about like, you know, Tony Blair and all that, you know, or whatever. Like that'll be like season 6 or whatever. But eventually, you know, so yeah, I think it's a pretty good show. So thanks for watching.